Go ahead and call up our guest tonight, the Lieutenant Colonel S.C. We're going to bring him on the show here tonight and talk a little bit about him.
Get the Colonel on the horn.
If anybody knows about the Colonel's actually been on many shows. He's been on Daniel Ott's show quite a bit, and we're going to bring him on and learn a little bit more about what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Lieutenant Colonel S.C. on the line with us. Lieutenant, thanks again for joining us here tonight, sir.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, it's great to have you on the show, and I know a lot of our Facebook listeners are excited to hear from you tonight. Just to go around the table so you know who you'll be speaking with here tonight, of course, you've got me, Jim. You've got on the line from Columbus, Ohio, Matt from Columbus.
Hey there, Colonel.
Hey, how you doing, Matt?
We've got our doctor. He plays one on TV, Dr. J.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Doctor.
And the wild man himself, Sonny.
How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. How about you, Sonny?
Great, thank you.
All right, well, Greg, before we get started here, I know a lot of our listeners have heard you on other shows. You know, one in particular would be Daniel Ott's show, which he's a friend of our show, too, and we have Daniel on our show quite often, and he's a great guy. But to get started, for the people that don't know much about you, go ahead and give us a little bit of background of what your specialty is in, what you've experienced, and what has driven you to get to the point where you've become a very vocal person in today's society.
Well, it started in the Air Force, and I left the Air Force, and the Army had given me. I had cosmic top secret in the Air Force, which means I could have. At one time, I even did a little bit of work on the space shuttle, and so I always wanted to be a shooting instructor. So they ousted me out of there, and I went to get my shots the next morning. This is a true story. And when I woke up in South America, and my shooting instructing ended up being the real deal. I was a sniper. And the reason they picked me as a sniper is because I held the unofficial world record group for 5 shots at 2.81 inches at 1,000 yards in 37 seconds.
Wow.
So they used me, and I made shots beyond 3,000 yards. I was kind of mad the other day. I was looking on the internet, and they said one of the Army men broke the world record at 1,500 yards. Lord, we were shooting people at 3,000 yards long before that. And anyway, so I did away with. I just did a show the other day. We talked about who I did away. I did counterterrorism against the drug cartel and the kiddie porn prostitution rings, and I had 547 one-shot kills there. I put down the Cali cartel and different cartels. Mostly, I got 248 of them were from the kiddie porn ring, which I took pleasure in doing. So I ended up in Black Ops there, and then afterwards I had a series of debriefings, and I was a lieutenant colonel by then, so to monitor me, because I had killed so many, they monitor you after you've killed so much. They sent me to Area 51 and made me commander of a quadrant of S4. It was split up into 4 spots, and I was the commander over security, not over the base, just security of S4, and I had 14 snipers that worked underneath me. Each quadrant had that. They had us there, and we were supposed to shoot dogs, anything. We shot a lot of dogs because people put things on dogs, you know, and send them in. So, and one incident, some kids were out there and crossed the line, and we just shot some high explosive rounds way far from them just to scare them, and they ran off. But we never shot anybody. I wouldn't shoot anybody. I would go down there and pick them up before I would do something like that. But we were ordered to use deadly force. But I got to see a lot of things there, and then I got sent to Dulce as security for some of the top brass, and I was handpicked by some of them, and so I escorted them into Dulce, and I got to see all 7 levels of Dulce. I've been in almost all the underground bases, and I've even seen some of the human experimentation and the scientific things they do, and some of the satanic ceremonies that they drum up these beings. And that's when I found out that the UFOs did not come from another planet. They, in fact, came from here, and they live under the abyss. And I was really astounded to find that out. I'm a Christian now, but I wasn't then. So I had an unbiased opinion of what they were.
Mm-hmm.
But they are real, and they are here, and they come from here, and they're the sons of God. They're the fallen angels, and
Wow,
a lot of people may not believe it, but
yes.
I've seen it firsthand. I've seen some of them that were 25 feet tall. So
Wait, these are aliens at Dulce Base?
They're the Nephilim.
yeah, at Dulce, they do sign. They hate us, believe it or not, and you can feel the hate between the Nephilim and the Greys and all that. They hate us, but they're in some kind of a constraint. And all I can say is that God hasn't constrained it to the appointed time. And just recently, of course, I'm sure some of the listeners have heard about the earthquakes supposedly in Virginia and Colorado. Those were, in fact, an 11-kiloton nuclear weapon detonated underneath the ground in Virginia and at one of the underground levels, and 2 5-kiloton nuclear detonations under the Denver airport. And what they're doing is the Nephilim are starting to, I guess God is lifting the constraints off of them, but they blew the entrances with nuclear weapons so that they could trap them in there when there is no trapping them in there. I mean, I've seen them pick up half-ton boulders and throw them like baseballs. There's just no keeping them in there. And they're not totally human. They're spiritual in nature, and so you can't kill a spirit, you know?
Well, if you're Sherry Shriner, you can kill them with an Orgon blaster.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
that's where we and her have a different agreement. let me tell you, I got a video the other day from a CIA agent.
Okay.
I won't say his name, but it was the director of MUFON. You could probably pull up on YouTube by now, but it was director of MUFON. Here's what he said, quote, "We have now found something that stops them in their tracks." And this guy was non-biased, and he said, in all the cases that we've talked to that people stopped it abruptly, they used the name of Jesus Christ, and that was all that worked.
I love it. I love it. Exactly.
And that's what the director of MUFON said.
Wow. Yeah, we
And
talked
I've
to a
been
couple
asked by MUFON to come and speak, but he said it all right there.
Oh, my Lord.
Now I have a question for you. This is Dr. J. It's always been long suspected that if the United States was in possession of alien technology, that is where a lot of our technology, we say, you know, oh, hey, we came up with this really cool idea, but we really didn't, that we adopted some of these things from research on alien technology.
That's the truth.
Okay.
And Hitler had the first one. Okay? The Roswell, if you'll notice, out of all the UFO reports we get now, they're pretty open about it.
Yeah.
But why is Roswell still a closed book? Well, I got to see the Roswell papers unedited, believe it or not.
And were they really little grays?
Yes, they were.
Wow.
But the ones that were alive, that's where we got fiber optics. And believe it or not, in 1979, I had a cell phone, flip phone, like you have now. And they weren't introduced to the public then, but they hide it because that's where most of the technology came from. Anti-gravity, they do know how to do anti-gravity. But here's what's really unbelievable, is we have opened up stargates and it worked. And in Libya, the bombing, now this is quite a claim, I know, but I know this for a fact because of the intelligence that I get is credible. They don't put, these are the kind of guys, if you told them a joke, they wouldn't laugh because they couldn't get it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they told me
I know the sort.
They told me they had a Stargate that the United States built in Libya, and it got stuck open, and they couldn't close it, and so started bombing it. Libya, Gaddafi isn't running from the American bombs; he's running from the Stargate. And that Stargate, supposedly, now I didn't eyewitness see it, but these people that I'm talking to, their word is as good as the Bible as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing that they ever told me that was wrong. And they told me that they're getting ready to pull out about 33,000 troops and send them down there to see what they could do about the situation because there was a lot of unnatural things coming through the Stargate that they opened up a porthole.
Wow.
And there's more than one. There's several of them around the Earth. But this particular one, they can't close it. and it's in Libya, and that's why Libya, if you'll remember when they gave up their nuclear weapons so easy, because we were in agreement, we were in ties with them, and we promised them if they got nuked that we would nuke the other country back, that they didn't need their weapons. And so, in exchange for us letting us build a Stargate there, because there's something about Libya in the position that it's in that the Stargate needed to work.
Now, where do these Stargates go, Greg?
I really don't know. I just know that they go to the unknown, and there has been people walk through of it and never came back out.
Wow.
And they say that you move. I take that back. One man made it out, and he had aged like 5 years, and then he'd only been in there for like 20 minutes. And he said that when he was in there, that he could go from place to place at the speed of light.
Wow.
And him finding his way out was just an anomaly. He ended up at the point where he started, and he was frantic. He had to go be institutionalized for months afterwards. And another startling discovery, in 1977, we found what they call the magic mirror. I don't know if y'all have heard about it yet. They found it in Russia, 3,000 feet deep in a coal mine.
What is this?
It's we just for the namesake, we call it the magic mirror. But what it is, it looks like a BlackBerry phone with no buttons on it, and it's gold. It's an inch thick, 5 inches wide, 8 inches long. And for years, 20 years, they've been trying to get it to work. Nothing happens. And they did x-rays on it, and it does have a small circuit board in the center of it. Now, we're talking about ancient stuff here.
Yeah.
And so the laboratory next door was working with low frequencies one day, and it came on. And there was 18 pictures in there of a family who had modern clothes on, just like us. And some of the wording, I can only remember some of it. I'll try to get it and post it, to give it to Jim where he can post it online. But it says, we did not want to follow in the ways of Adam, our great-great-grandfather. We liked the technology of today. And what he said we think is nothing but garbage, and that it was corrupting our children. And he said that we noticed that after that we gave up the ways of our great-great-grandfather Adam, that our glow was going away. And what we used to be able to do with our minds now had to be physically done. But we were quite proud of what we made with technology in doing this. And it just goes on, and it's just incredible because this thing is just ancient. And then, I don't know if y'all know Klaus Don.
No, I'm not
Klaus
familiar.
Donna? Okay.
Wait, what is it called?
Klaus Donna? That's his name.
Oh, no, I don't know.
I'll have to send you some stuff on him. He's a very, very important scientist on artifacts. And they went to South America and found some artifacts. And these artifacts were showing modern airplanes and stuff. And so they built models of these airplanes, and they actually flew and did loops, these airplanes. And on the back of some of the rocks, they had a rock of a pyramid with an eye on it. And on the bottom of it, it had ancient Sumerian writing on it. And 2 years later, a guy that knew the language broke it. And you know what it said? And the Creator's Son shall come.
Wow. That's
so,
crazy.
You know, this, and then on the back, it had other inscriptions that can only be seen with ultraviolet light. Now this is ancient stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're behind if you look at some of the stuff that I've been seeing.
Right. Now
I'm going to send Jim a bunch of links now that I know him and everything.
Great.
I'll send you a bunch of stuff. Some of it top secret, but you can share with the people that you're with now, and
All right.
just for verification.
Oh,
Well, hey, I had a quick question. Going back to, you were talking about the beings at the Dulce base. You said that there were 25-foot tall aliens, and then there were the Greys. You said that you identified the 25-foot ones. You said that they were Nephilim, but they were fallen angels. What makes you say that? Why would they not necessarily just be extraterrestrials?
They told us that's what they were. They told us that they were the enemy of God, and they had totally, they had this big pitch, Phil, which I didn't hear at all, But they pretty much convinced all the other scientists that we were going to be in this ultra-galactic war against God and that we were going to win. Because I always wondered how he's going to pull that off. And I don't believe in a pre-trib rapture. I believe in post-trib. Otherwise, God wouldn't wrote Revelations for the simple reason when they come and the Christians disappear from extermination, all they're going to do is tell him. I seen this in a script in a paper that I looked at. I was at S4. That said that the Christians will disappear, we'll exterminate them, and we'll lie to the public and convince them that we gave them to they call them undesirables, and we gave them to the space beings in exchange for information so they could do experimentation on them.
Now, how did they look? Did they have huge skulls, big hands, 5 eyes? How did they look to you, Greg?
They just looked, they were ugly.
Okay.
But they were huge, and I know that there's some of the ancient writings where it talks about some that were 300 feet high, which I never seen. But these Nephilim, they're very intelligent. And let me tell you how powerful the word Jesus Christ is. We were not allowed, we had to sign a document and swear an oath that we were not allowed to use the name of Jesus Christ under those tunnels, not even in anger.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's how powerful his name is.
Beautiful.
Now, would the name Jesus get the aliens upset? I mean,
It
is
made
that
them
one?
go berserk. It tortured them.
But wouldn't aliens be considered a form of a creation of
Yeah,
God
they
too?
are a form of creation,
Yeah,
but they're evil.
Yes.
Their intentions are evil. They worked with Hitler all those years. We found documents that they're still, believe it or not, we're still, to this day, going through the documents of Hitler. That's how many things he did. And I always wondered why tyrants like Hitler and Saddam Hussein, why would you want to keep documents of your atrocities? But at any rate, he's got documents of his atrocities, but this UFO, Von Braun was in on it. Von Braun, he was in on it real heavy, and they had managed to get the craft to work, I guess, with one of these beings at 6,000 miles an hour, 10,000 miles an hour, and one at 12,000 miles an hour. When the war came to the end, the United States now owns it, and it's at the Dulce base right now, and I believe it's getting ready to be moved to S4. The anti-gravity, people talk about reverse engineering, can't be done. The anti-gravity, whatever it is, the element that it is so powerful, if you get within 100 yards of it, it kills you. They've already found that out.
Wow.
And so a few years back, and it got confirmed by Ed Dames. I'm friends with him. I don't know if you all know Ed Dames. He's a remote viewer.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I've heard of him.
Well, I don't believe in the remote viewing because it opens up.
Portals in your
It
spirit.
opens you up. But he said that Hitler had captured that, and it was brought over here, and he just went off the subject and went into Korea. And I said, well, what do you think about the Korean crisis? I mean, if they say anything, he goes, well, they don't have a delivery system to bring it over here, so what they're going to do when it comes time is they're going to hit Seoul with those conventional rockets, those 100,000 rockets,
Greg,
and convince the Americans to come over the line, and they've got nuclear mines.
before we get a little bit too far into this here, because I definitely want to hear about that too. So, would it be safe to say that you're saying that basically that would you say that all aliens are bad? That we're the only good living species? That
Yes, I would.
everything else other than us is considered bad?
All the aliens I've ever seen were bad, and Stephen Hawkins made a comment in coordinates with mine. You can ask Daniel Ott about it. He agreed with me that they were here for no good reason.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I agree with him. So, I mean,
course.
would you think that there's good angels though? But you never see them, right?
Yeah, there's good angels, and I do believe people do see them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we see them in everyday life, but just don't see them physically, by the acts that are done. You get hit by a semi-tractor truck, and you walk away without a scratch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But God has, what I've found out by prayer and fasting and things, that God has his top secrets, and the devil has his top secrets.
Yeah.
And God makes known to his remnant what he needs to make known, because he says, don't worry about what you're going to say when you're brought up to the council, because that might be one of his top secrets. And he'll give you the words to say. And that's what I believe. See, when the days of Noah came, he said, in 120 years I'll destroy all flesh. But it says in the Bible that God speaks twice, so he has two meanings to everything. So he was also speaking of 120 weeks of years with a 400 gap in between the Old and New Testament, which would give the month of Nisan in the Jewish calendar exactly 6,000 years since the days of Noah. And he said it would be as in the days of Noah. And if he created the earth in 6 days and he rested on the seventh, then they would go into the eighth week, which is a week of years, which is literal 7-year period. And then it says the Messiah is cut off in 3.5 years.
Gotcha.
Wow, that's powerful. But yeah, we need to get our spiritual house in order. Now, you said you were in Area 51?
Yes, I was at Area 51, but that's not where everything happened.
Okay.
That's more of administration.
Right.
I was a quadrant commander, and there was 8 of us. There's 4 quadrants, and they really had more than 8, but they used us 8 in case one was sick. And we just controlled the snipers in the region in S4. But being over there, we got to see everything. The crafts were just can you imagine? I mean, for y'all, the crafts are phenomenal. It was an everyday thing for me to see them up close. I'm talking about 20, 30 feet away from them.
Now that they have special metallic or anything different?
Yeah, they were metallic. They were all different. But you know what? I found out that some of them are alive. The actual craft is a living membrane because they split off the way they do.
Amazing. Wow. That's crazy.
I mean, I did my homework. I'm not a scientist or anything like that, and I was battlefield commissioned. I don't want anybody thinking that I went to OCS and got it on my merit. I kind of cheated. They battlefield commissioned me.
Now, Lieutenant, some people in the chat room are asking, you do have some proof to, back some of these statements up, correct?
Yeah. I mean, you can even ask Daniel Ott. Daniel Ott did background checks on me.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Daniel Ott thinks highly of you. I mean, he loves you.
Oh, yeah. Me and Daniel, we're pretty good friends. And that one I sent you today was a pretty good interview, Jim.
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
I think they're some of the best shows, Colonel. I really do. I think... that's why I'm a fan over there, because you came there and you also had a debate with Sherry Schreiner, which was very, very interesting. I think you let her down a little easy. You know what I mean? You were a gentleman.
Yeah, I did.
You were a gentleman.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make enemies. I
Right.
just called it a disagreement. And she said, you have to be real fluid, Greg, to call out the name of Christ. I said, well, what do you think you have to be real fluid to load an argon machine cock and sit there and blast people? But, that's a difference between me and her. But we're
Right.
friends. I stay
Right.
friendly with her, and she's a nice person. She just believes what she believes, and I don't know what argon is, but I know that the name of Jesus Christ is a whole lot more powerful than argon.
Well, she actually sent me one of her organs. I actually bought it for $25, and actually the demons actually attacked more. So I know firsthand the thing, it does the opposite of what she says.
Right.
It's very scary, and you're right. It's just the spiritual aspect of knowing Christ, God, and being one, being born again. It's a must.
Greg, before we move on to the next thing, what is your advice for people that swear by this orgon?
Well, if you haven't been abducted, it's because they didn't want to abduct you.
Oh, yeah.
It's not because you had orgon. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
If they want to abduct you, they're going to abduct you because they abduct Christians all the time. And like I said before, when they uttered the name of Jesus Christ, that's all they had to do. They didn't say no prayer, none. They just uttered the name of Jesus Christ out of their fear. And they said they had the feeling of being dropped into their bed, like they were up at the ceiling and dropped.
Colonel, I actually had a visitation at my house. I actually seen a craft. I actually seen 3 in the same night. A couple weeks later,
they were looking for money.
No, they weren't looking for money. There was a visitation, and I felt like I woke up in the Holy Spirit, and I felt like there was something there. And so I prayed in the name of Christ, dear Lord, protect me. And when I woke up that morning just thinking, man, that was weird, maybe, I was just, thinking about these UFOs a little too much at night. And when I walked into my room, or my living room, there was actually personal papers, government papers, of work and everything in a pyramid. And there was actually, like when you go to Home Depot and you buy the paint and they get a circle sticker and they put on the top of the paint can? Well, that was in the middle of these government papers. as the eye of the Illuminati or whatever. So I have experienced that, and yes, the name of Christ does work, and it was very, very powerful. Yeah.
Well, you know, what Sherry says about Oregon is one thing to me trying to debunk it, but when the director of MUFON tells you that's the only thing that works,
yes,
he's got more clout than me in that area.
Greg,
and I'm supposed to speak with them in Charlotte at a conference center, and there's supposed to be like 3,000 or 4,000 people there. I don't know.
That'll be great. You
But,
know, I got a question for you out of the chat room really quick. It says, assuming this is true, and this comes from Sinkford, assuming this is true, how do you know the aliens aren't just using religion to get you on their side or as an easy enemy?
Because it's not religion. I'm spiritual.
Yes.
Organized religion is what sends you to hell.
Right, a relationship with the Creator.
I got a personal relationship
Yes.
with Christ. I mean, the teachers in the churches wanted to argue with me about the week of years, that it was 49 years and not 50, but you got to add the Jubilee year in. So it's 50 years. And I got a Jew that lives with me. He was my staff sergeant in combat. He's been living here for about 3 years now at our house.
Okay.
And he's seen some quite spectacular things with me. But we all know who our Creator is. But you see, on that eye, that pyramid with the eye, it says the Creator's Son shall come at this time. The Illuminati took that eye and corrupted it. The eye that you see on the dollar bill is a picture of Roosevelt's eye.
Is it?
Yeah, that's Roosevelt's eye. And if you'll remember, of the 3 pyramids that were built, the Giza pyramid was done by Enoch. And if you'll notice, the top is left off because it says in the book, in the Bible, that the cornerstone was left off. And everything about that thing is spiritual. Well, they corrupted it by using the eye lifted up above the rest of the bricks to show that those 13 bricks in that eye are the most powerful families in the world, and they control the rest of the
13
world.
bloodlines.
Wait, I have a question for you. Wait, did you say that Enoch built the Great Pyramids of Giza?
Yeah, I believe it, and I'll send you the link on that too. It's on a DVD I got. This guy was a professional football player, and God broke his leg and called him to do this. And for 15 years he studied it, and I never, ever, ever heard anything explained like that in my life. That was one of the most mind-blowing interviews I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And they had chambers in there. In this one chamber, there was a slot opened up with going across, and there was beds in the chamber. And what that was for the Jews to sleep in each bed so that they could write out the lunar calendar as it went across the sky.
Now, I always thought that the eye in the pyramid also looked a little bit like reptilian. Now, what is your take on the reptilian? Did you see any reptiles?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I know. It's for another conversation, but I could go on for 3 hours about the reptilians. I worked with them side by side. I know who they are.
But the other question was, why is maybe you guys answered this, maybe I wasn't paying attention, why was the eye 2-dimensional and the pyramid 3-dimensional in the depiction on the back of the dollar bill?
That I don't know. I'm sure they had a satanic reason for doing it.
Yep.
But we believe the Antichrist is the Prince Charles of Wales. For a simple fact, if you look at his coat of arms, there's a big story about that. But on his coat of arms that his mother had, it had a picture of the dragon with a chain around it. And the dragon did not touch any part of it. So when she passed over her coat of arms to him, it had a picture of the chain broken and the dragon with his hand stuck out. So there's a lot of compelling evidence about Prince Charles of Wales. Really, really, really compelling.
Bloodlines of the Illuminati.
I thought everybody was saying Obama was the Antichrist.
Oh, I've got a piece on Obama I can send you where all he talks about is his Muslim faith.
Oh, yeah.
That the United States will never go to war with Islam, and he said that, it's just all about Muslims, and that Muslims are the ones who created and shaped this country in the way it was with their art.
I thought those were the Masons.
Huh?
I thought those were the satanic Masons, the secret societies.
Oh, yeah, the Masons.
They are.
Okay,
I believe the
know.
one world order is going to be Catholic. I just do. Islam is. Right. You got to remember, the things that are in plain sight usually aren't the ones. I mean, the devil, it says, comes in subtly, and you got to remember, he's cunning. He's smarter than us. He can trick us. People say, "Oh, I got more power than the devil." No, you don't. You got more authority than the devil.
With Christ,
you can't outpower him. You want to go into a face-to-face match with the devil, you're going to lose.
Definitely. Now, do you think the reptilians were part of the devil?
Yes, the reptilians is the highest rank that you can be in the alien agenda.
Wow. Now, I have seen spiritually like demonic type reptilian entities. And they actually look like that one movie, Durango. Remember, what's that movie?
Pepsi
Jim?
Demon?
No, what's the movie, that Durango movie?
Rango, yeah.
Rango.
Now, did they look like that, Greg? Do you know what I'm talking about? What
movie?
movie?
They look like the ones on V.
Okay.
That's what they look like.
Uh-oh.
And they are the most evil of them all.
Wow. And what do they talk?
Very evil.
How do they talk? Do they, like, gargle or?
No, they talk
French?
just like us. But I guarded the doors inside one time at one ritual. And I've been to several rituals. I've been to Bohemian Grove 3 times and watched that ritual. But
How did you get in? How did you get in?
Because I was security commander of
I
S4,
see.
and the president hand chose his security team.
Gotcha.
And we were allowed, let's put it this way, at S4, I had so much security clearance that I could override the president's decision on what I seen fit at that time. I could kill the vice president, but not the president, if I seen that he was stepping over the line. That's how much pressure was exerted on us.
Now, I know this is going to be a question that's going to come up, and I know a lot of people are wondering this. How are you able to get away with talking about this kind of stuff without having any type of repercussions?
Very good question. I was going to ask that too.
Yeah, because things are coming so close, so near. What am I going to do?
Right.
Am I going to put a dent in what they're going to do? No, because probably 80% of the people listening to me now don't even believe it. So,
wow.
You know, and they know this. And at first I did get some repercussion. I had a Black Hawk 3 years ago fly over and shot 450 caliber rounds at me and gave me the finger. And I was told by the CIA they were going to do that. They were supposed to try to hit me. And that was a sign that they did their job and missed. But I got friends deep into some of these alphabet agencies that protect me. They scramble my phone, they scramble my emails, but remember, I still do the code breaking for them, and I'm one of 16 people that knows how to break Al-Qaeda's codes.
Wow.
So I'm pretty important to them.
It's not the Bible codes.
No, it's not the Bible codes.
Well, that's powerful.
The Bible does have a code. It's not the Da Vinci Code.
Okay.
The Bible is coded, though.
Cool.
There was a man who took the book of Daniel and took all the nouns and the verbs out and put it back into the Hebrew and took all the words that we added out and read it backwards. And you know what it read? The whole thing was about a galactic warfare in the heavens.
Wow.
You know,
that's just like the secret skulls of Scientology, right? Like Emperor Xenu?
Yeah. Yeah.
Got another
Pretty
question.
much.
Got another question for you, Greg. What are your, since we're talking a little bit about the Bible and so forth, what are your thoughts about the missing books in the Bible?
I think that Enoch and that should have been in there.
Right.
I really do. Now, that's just my opinion.
Now,
but
why was it
God
left out?
Huh?
Why was it left out?
I don't know. But I know that God inspired this, so they're the way they're supposed to be. And here's what I believe. When you got a story, let's say you're a journalist and you go to war and you're covering a story, you got the people who actually write the story because they did it, and then you have a commentator on the sideline that wrote the story because he's seen it. And that's the way I see Enoch.
Okay.
Gotcha. So do you think that when the Bible was finally put together that things were intentionally left out by man?
They were left out by God. Yeah,
Yes.
I think that God,
Right.
you know, I do believe that the Bible is absolute truth.
Yes.
It's the real Bible, not the new
Well,
Illuminati
well-
version.
Well, let me ask you this. Why do you think the Bible is true? Because there's plenty of evidence that indicates that the Bible itself is really just a fictional story made up by ancient Bronze Age tribesmen.
Well,
What makes you believe that the Bible is real?
my faith.
Yep.
My faith. I have to go by faith alone. And I have tried other means to get myself out of jams. I've been shot 7 times. I got 7 Purple Hearts.
Wow.
And not one of those gods I ever seen, and it's true. You hear somebody get shot, and they're going, oh, God, and they don't want to die. And let me tell you about the Muslims. During the first Gulf War, when I went in there, they want to blow themselves up, right? But when you capture them, get ready to kill them, they don't want to die. I mean, because they do believe in hell, and a lot of the Muslims that I talked to over there, because I was in an interrogation group, and I won't go into what we did, but we interrogated some of them, and a lot of them only believed into Muslim faith so that they could live. In other words, they wouldn't be killed. And in Iran and Iraq, you would not believe that there's over 2 million people underground that are Christians.
Beautiful.
And they're getting ready to rise to the top. I mean, literally underground in tunnels and bunkers.
Glory to God.
And they're getting ready to rise up against everything. They're going to put out their lives for Christ.
Now, you did say, I heard you on Daniel Ott's show, that you said that there was UFOs above Jerusalem in Israel. You had videos and stuff?
Yeah, I was watching it live streaming from a CIA agent.
Okay.
And I don't have them downloaded, but I might can get I've had several people ask.
Right.
And there's just some things I can talk about, but I'll tell you this, not everything that I say can be proven.
Right.
Not everything. If that was possible, you wouldn't need me on the show. I'd just send you a bunch of pictures and links.
Right.
But I'm a Christian, and I'm telling you the truth, and I'm giving you eyewitness testimony of what I saw. You know, so other than that, you know, you can verify that I was a colonel and this and that. That don't mean anything. It's what I seen. And you all have no idea. Every night when I shut my eyes, I finally had a doctor, he put me on Valium to go to sleep and clonidine.
Wow.
And because when I shut my eyes, I killed 540 people I killed in combat.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
And
go ahead.
I got in trouble for disobeying a direct order. This is what got me out of the Army, so everybody knows. We were just outside of Bolivia, and there was 2 drug cartel leaders. They were big shots, and we knew that they were using a building, and they had 1-inch thick steel plates that they could slide across the windows that had Kevlar behind it and had reactive armor.
Right.
Reactive armor means that it explodes when it hits so that it can't penetrate.
We got a question out of the chat room for Raul. He wants to know, how can we fight against the aliens?
Hey, Raul, I know who he is. I see a lot of his messages. There is no fighting against the aliens. It's prayer. This is a spiritual warfare we're headed for now. We're done with the destruction warfare. It's coming. We're going to get destroyed. America will be number 1 to get hit because I believe she's Mystery Babylon.
Now
but I do believe that that it's a spiritual mindset that's going to make you win or lose. Spiritual warfare is won or lost in the threshold of your mind.
Right. Now, do you think the because you know about secret psyops and everything, military psyops, that New York.
That's your new buzzword.
Yeah,
I gotta ask.
No, it's
psyops. Did you just
psyops?
He knows a lot about it.
But Sonny, you've never said it until this show.
Because I've been studying.
He's been researching psyops.
Well, this man knows his things.
We were called psyops.
Right, and so the thing is that we're seeing the protest in New York. Now it's going to Cleveland and Texas and all these places. Do you think that's a setup job so we can lose our freedoms and so they can usher in?
Exactly right. You did your homework.
Exactly. Now I had another question was, have you ever, and you talked about remote viewing and stuff like that, do you believe, did you see that movie, Men That Stare at Goats and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Now is that real? Can men walk through walls and, kill a goat? They can walk?
They can.
Wow. Okay.
When I went to Ed Dame's class, the Army made me go, it was real interesting. I seen some things that they were picking targets out. As a matter of fact, Ed Dames was on Art Bell one time and said, when we were after Moussaoui, he says, "Look, I remote viewed Moussaoui, and he's in a spider hole, and right next to him is about 50 pounds of Simtex. We can explode it if we all put our mind down to it." And Art Bell refused to do it.
Wow.
But I went to one of his things, and I tried remote viewing one time in a 20-minute session. That's all I took. And I was able to make a light bulb explode
Whoa.
6 rooms down.
Unbelievable. Now, do you think that using those abilities, is that like, kind of like, is that from our power, or can it be a demonic?
No, that's satanic. You're opening up the doors to a lot of things.
Yes,
when you do that.
that's what we talked to a prior guest, and I said the same thing, that remote viewing is not good. You open up your spirit.
But couldn't God endow us with certain abilities?
Jedi powers?
Yeah, why not?
They'll stick up for it. They'll go to the desk sticking up for remote viewing and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Anything that you do, let me tell you what, remote viewing, psychics, all that stuff, you might as well be playing with the Ouija board.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, you would know about that, Matt, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, I
got a Ouija board downstairs.
I've opened up the door.
I use it as a serving
things,
tray.
You know that I did. But to finish off of why I got out of the Army as a lieutenant colonel, these two drug cartel leaders were up there, and I had a 41 Barrett, and I could have got them. I was only 1,700 yards from them. But I noticed children going into the bottom of the school, and I called in CENTCOM, and I spoke. They've got their metal doors closed. We're going to have to wait this one out. And they said, no, call in an airstrike. I said, man, there's just a school building they're using. There's women and children in there, and I will not call in an airstrike on women and children. And they were impressing on me to keep doing it. Well, I didn't. Well, a few minutes later, I heard the faint sound of a fighter jet coming, and there was 8 of us, and we all ran down the hill and told everybody, get out of the building, and boom. That was the most devastating thing I ever seen in my life. I was never so devastated in my heart in my whole life than seeing all them children body parts laying everywhere.
No.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so here's the deal. They told me to call in the airstrike, right? Well, they did it anyway. They didn't need me to call in the airstrike. They wanted a fall guy. Well, 2 years later is when I got court-martialed for it.
That's messed up.
And all I did was waive my rights. I don't have no VA. I had to waive my rights to everything.
Wow. That's not cool. Well, thank you for serving. Really, Colonel.
Yeah, and it's no problem.
Terrible.
I mean, it was my job, and I became good at it. I'm not bragging, but I became good at it. My intuition was really good. And I have intuitions about things that are getting ready to happen this year and the very first of next year. And I just have earthquake thing going on.
We want to touch on that, too, about what you think is going to be happening here in the upcoming future. But Tricia from the chat room also asked, why do you think that psychics are satanic?
Because they don't ask God. Remember the psychic that was in the Bible that Saul inquired of?
Right, yeah.
And he says, you inquired of her and you didn't inquire of it with me?
Okay.
The medium?
Yeah.
And it says all divination and mediums were detestable before God.
Gotcha.
Now, I don't hate psychics. If that's what they believe is the right thing to do, then so much for them. But what I believe is right is I try to live with, and I blow it every day. As a Christian, I blow it every day. But I have to get on my knees and repent. And the way I want to live my life is serving Christ. Yes. Even if I have to do these radio shows and I get waxed one of these days, it's my destiny. And if you know your destiny, you're immortal until it's carried out.
Gotcha.
Powerful.
Well, we're going to open up the lines if anybody wants to call in, 440-508-4272. We're on the phone with Lieutenant Colonel S.C. You can call in if you have a question. We'll open up the lines. But what I wanted to talk to you about now, go into, is, with everything happening in the world today, and, I'm sure that you probably also agree that that you feel that 9/11 was an inside job and so forth. But what do you see the state of our country in the future? Where do you see us going, and what do you think's next on the list here?
We have I'll tell you this is top secret, and I'm going to say it for the first time on the radio. I think I might have said it to Daniel and got in trouble, but I'm going to say it again. There's a fault line that goes from the Bahamas up through the Carolinas. Every 500 yards is a 2-kiloton nuclear weapon floating above it like a buoy to blow it. to cause martial law and one world order, you have to have all these catastrophes happen at one time so that there's order out of chaos. And then when everybody's starving, because in Katrina, FEMA was there and all this, but all them people died, didn't that kind of give you an idea of who was coming to save you? Nobody. Yep. They let them people out on their own. They bought 10,000 trailers from Horton Homes, and those 10,000 trailers were sitting in the same field in Colorado, an organized bunker group, surrounded by razor wire, with the razor wire pointed in, seen it firsthand, seen it with my own eyes, and they don't have it on, but they can turn a switch on and put 10,000 volts to that thing. So when the martial laws come, they're going to have random, there's some movies, there's some precursor movies. Deep Impact is one of them. Deep Impact goes into every single scenario that's already been said, and then he gets down to the point where the comet is going to hit, and he goes, we're going to have to do a lottery because we only have enough room underground for 500 million people. Well, guess what the stones of the masonry says in Georgia from the Illuminati? Rule the world by 500 million.
Yep. Exactly.
Right. Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, the world's overpopulated, so...
That is propaganda. The world is not overpopulated.
You need a comet to hit so that we can reset the button because, you know, I mean, the Earth is overpopulated. We have a lot of disease and famine.
We got a lot of stupid people. And
well,
Georgia Guidestones really are correct. I mean, if you really stop and think about it, logically they make sense.
It is, but it's still genocide.
That's true.
You think
well, but God does everything, right? So if it's genocide on the part of God. So it's Yahweh's fault.
It's man-made.
No, God controls everything. So God, if people die, God does it.
He doesn't do it. He allows the devil to do it.
Well,
right.
The devil he allows it to happen. It's not the devil, because God is omnipresent. He's omnipowerful. He controls everything. Therefore, everything that happens on the earth, good or bad, good or evil, is because of God, Yahweh, the false Messiah.
And that's I have to agree halfway with you on that. I really do.
Wow.
But
that's the problem of evil.
But I have a problem with genocide, whether it comes from God or not. And he doesn't cause a spirit of confusion and fear, and that's what this is all based on. See, I didn't see martial law. A lot of things I didn't see. But what I did see was I was in the S4 library. I seen things that you just wouldn't believe. I watched a video the other day that I'll never know how to explain it, but I'll send you the video, Jim, and you can give it to the other guys.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Okay.
These girls, they're pulled over by the police, and they're being questioned, and they're on the interstate, and everything's moving at 70 miles an hour, and they're in Britain. They both run out and run in front of a Mack truck and get hit, and the wheels run over them, and 10 minutes later they get up and run away.
Wow. That is...
The whole clip's there. That's the Super Soldier program. So I believe that they might be creating some beings that don't even have a soul.
Right. Now, there's a lot now, and let's just get into this. I know it's a stupid new conspiracy, but a lot of people now are saying that Steve Jobs is not dead, that he went and got his cures for cancer and everything, and he's just living high on the hog, you know?
I don't know if I can agree with that. You know, it's pretty hard to fake your own death. Elvis is still alive, too, you know? It's just pretty hard, you know, but... I know that they have the technology, and I have access to it because I have some of it. And I know you all have heard of MMS.
Yes.
MMS cured my lung cancer in 1 week.
Unbelievable.
And I was told by a MD who came to stay with me for a weekend. I have people come almost every weekend. There's scientists, there's people that come to meet me. It's in Grand Central Station here at the ranch. And he said that he quit med school. He became an MD, but he quit cancer research because here's what they said, quote, his instructions said, chemotherapy has a 0% success rate. All we try to do is kill the cancer before it kills the host.
Right.
So he said he got disheartened with it. And now they come out with MMS and stuff, but it's working and curing. but you can't come out and sell it or come out with it openly, or you'll be killed.
Oh. Now, what do you think of chemtrails? A lot of people are getting sick. Do you believe in chemtrails?
Yes, I do. I know there's chemtrails.
Thank you.
I talked to a pilot that sprayed them, and he told me that what it was very minute amounts of nerve gas and anthrax, and very microgram minute. And to weaken the public's defense system, their immune system, so that when the time comes, see, these things will stay the way they engineer them. They just sit dormant like AIDS does, and then before they take over, so there won't be much resistance, they'll spray the trigger agent, and everybody will come down with the flu, and we'll be coming into the hospitals ourselves, and we'll be easy to apprehend.
Let me just jump in there really quick. If you're trying to Skype in, the Skype name is just Extreme Society, one word, Extreme Society, or you can call us at 440-508-4272.
Now, Colonel, where did you find this information out? Because that's pretty powerful.
I talked to the pilot, actually, that did it.
Wow.
And I really got to give God all the credit, because I really am blessed with contacts in high places. And I still do black ops. I was telling Jim earlier.
Wow.
I'm a code breaker on a regular basis, but I have to erase somebody from the books every now and then.
Now, what do you think about this anonymous group that's making a lot of videos as of late? They've also been known as being so-called hackers, too.
They're extremists. They're not that big of a group, but the government doesn't want to do anything about it. Let me tell you this. For an example, Oliver North was my first commander. This was before he got into any trouble or anything, and he doesn't know me. If he was walking down the street, he would recognize me if I was up in his face, but he was my commander. And I asked him one day, I said, there's not much action going on. And he says, I was a captain then. He said, Captain, we could wipe the drug war out in one day. And that's all he said, and I pondered it. 3 weeks later, I went on a mission, and I was supposed to hit this guy in an 18-wheeler about 1 mile from the border because of the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about 1,400 yards away, and I'm talking about a millisecond from me squeezing off the round. They told me to abort.
Right.
I watched the truck come through. The CIA came in their official car, gave them the car, took the truck, and swapped a suitcase of money. The CIA's the drug dealers.
There you go. Yep. That's coming from a man that's seen it.
Rumsfeld and his opium fields, and Bush in their opium fields, if they grow too much opium, they bomb it. If they don't grow enough, they pressure them. So one of the reasons that people in Afghanistan don't like us is opium is, I'm on pain medicine, I'm on morphine and Oxycontin because of my injuries. They're terrible injuries from bullet wounds. And all that stuff comes from opium, it's derivatives. So I thought to myself, where do they get it? Do they grow the opium here? Like do marijuana or whatever?
Right.
No, they steal it from the drug cartels. And just like Saddam Hussein, any tyrant can stay in power. But Saddam got defiant and didn't play by the rules, and it was time to take him out.
Now,
as long as you play by the rules, you're fine.
A lot of people said, though, that was a fake Saddam Hussein.
No, it was real. He's really put down. What I do have a doubt, though, is Osama bin Laden, because that was a black ops group, SEAL Team 6.
Right.
And they went in there. Now, you tell me, during the Holocaust, they didn't mind showing those images. You tell me why they didn't give the people that lost their families at 911 the respect to see his head blown off. They should have gave them the respect. But here's the real deal. I don't believe they got killed at all. Because they killed SEAL Team 6. Remember the first chopper went down?
Yeah.
Because they were there during the firefight and they knew what happened. And so they had to get rid of them. SEAL Team 6 was taken out. And then the other guys went in there. And here's another thing. 2 weeks later, they go back to the same site to get all the paperwork and the computers, and the Pakistani government didn't even go in there and touch nothing.
You're right. Now, does that frighten you? Because you're still working for these guys.
No, I pick and choose.
Right.
I'm not going to... They let us pick and choose.
Right.
I'm pretty sought after, you know. They're not paying me enough to do it. And, you know, if you're not in the kiddie porn or the drug cartel or a satanic murderer, I'm out. If it's in the kiddie porn, I'll do it for nothing. Expenses paid, and that's all. Drug cartels, I want to be paid on. But the real drug cartel is the United States. I just hate to say it. We are really setting ourselves up for war. All the nations of the earth hate us. They've all drank the wine of the wrath of our fornication. Now, all the porn industry is the heaviest in Japan. Where do you think they got it? They got it from us. Every time we leave a country that was dictated, we leave it, and it's
Porn's
not
there,
dictated. It's corrupt.
Hey, we had another question here from one of our listeners who wants to know about, do you believe that zombies are real and that they play some part in the end time scenarios?
Yes, I do. We were talking about that. I was talking about that with a professor at the Department of Defense just this morning. And I will send you the name of the disease, but it exists now. They did have a real photo, a real script of one that they inserted into a game, I think, called Strike Force about zombies. But the original movie was real, and the Russians were trying to get their guy. They said, well, he's wearing a cape. Well, when you're doing nighttime ops, most your guys wear a black cape. It's cotton, so it doesn't reflect, so that you can hide in the shadows. This guy's clearly shooting at these things, and what makes it real credible is when they rip him apart, the blood spews everywhere, and they're watching them on thermal imaging. You can see the blood pools cool off. So I've got that too, if you'd like that. Well, no, it's on. You know what, Jim? I sent it to you. It's on. It should be on. It should be on there.
Now, Colonel, do you have a website that you have all this information, or?
No. The guy who interviewed me the other day, he's the #1 journalist in all of Mexico. And he's going to build me a website. As a matter of fact, he's writing a book about me.
I mean, yeah, it would be amazing. You've seen and done so much. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of pictures that are top secret. I got a picture of me leaning on there with a smile and a big cigar in my mouth against a TRB-3 that was hovering.
Wow. What are your thoughts on Jesse Ventura?
I think he's the real deal, but I think he's got motive behind it.
Yeah, me too.
See, I have no motive. I'm not getting paid. I'm going to get bashed for this, you see.
Right.
It's the people that go out there like me and others that are going to take a bashing for what we said. We know it. But we do it anyway because the truth is the truth. It remains constant. And a lie changes. And as long as you tell the truth, the end result will always be the same.
You know, another question I have for you, too, is, you know, since we're talking a little bit about zombies here, and I want to try to get as much in as we can because I know we're running a little short on time here, but how do you think, how are zombies created in the first place?
There was a group of scientists out in Uganda, I know the exact story on it, and they were trying to do the Osiris. And if you want to hear about Osiris, go to YouTube, type in Lieutenant Colonel S.C. and click on the very first one. There's 15 minutes where I explain Operation Osiris, Slain and Risen.
Okay.
Came from Himmler. Well, they were experimenting on this, and they had 6 or 12, I can't remember, bodies stacked up outside with lime on them, waiting for a truck to pick them up while they were doing their scientific experiments trying to resurrect people. When they went out that night, they were all gone. They came back and killed the scientists. They only live about 36 to 48 hours, but they do eat human flesh. And if you get bit, it's sickness. It's a long name for the disease. I couldn't say the name of it, but it's a real thing, and I believe it in the apocalypse. That will be the part where men's hearts will fail them from fear. Because
what is their purpose of eating flesh, though? Because if they're technically dead in the first place, why do they need to feed?
Because they're evil. Look at the Nephilim. God destroyed them because they were eating They were eating man.
Gotcha.
And I think it's just part of the spirit of them. I think the Nephilim spirit and the Anunakki spirit is the key to all of this.
You know, real quick, maybe you can answer this, Colonel. how did they survive? A lot of people go, well, they all died in the flood. How did they survive? Do you have any?
Yeah.
How did they do
What
that?
it is when Noah told
His son.
God
Ham?
told Noah he's going to make 120 years. He's going to do a destroy all flesh. It took 120 literal years. You don't think that the devil knew that in 120 years he was going to be flooded out? They dug those tunnels that we see now. You know, those tunnels were there, and they barricaded themselves in for that flood because he said there was giants in those days, and also after that.
Oh.
So they buried themselves in these underground tunnels, and they've been flooded into it. And then Legion was cast out and thrown in the abyss, and that's why they don't like the water. They don't like being in the abyss.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah.
But that's
Makes sense.
That's exactly why.
Now, one of the other things I wanted to talk about too with you and get your input on is you know, the recent uprising that has been around Wall Street, and now that's starting to hit across the country and other major cities here. I mean, what is your take on that? Because one thing I have to say that, because we kind of touched base on this a little bit, and I have to disagree with you on one thing here, and that's when we talked about, you know, this being a staged event and that this is all a mask. Well, you know, how can that be? If everything is a staged event, how can anybody legitimately stand up and actually try to fight back without being accused of being part of the system?
Well, you're exactly right. But the Constitution says we can. They just don't recognize it. But take a look at Alan Greenspan. How can one man tell the whole world what the interest rate's going to be?
I agree. But
how, the IRS, they have no governing factor.
I agree, but how can we say that this is just another setup job? How can we say that? How do we know that?
To create a new world order, you can have no superpower. None. And America is the last of the superpowers, and they have to break our back.
I see.
And they have to break us financially.
Yep.
The more the homes and stuff close, the further the dollar goes down. God says in the Bible that the gold and silver belongs to me. Invest in gold. Gold is where everybody should, and silver where everybody should put their money.
Wait, where's that at? Which Bible verse says that? Because I haven't.
It's in the New Testament. I'll find it and send it up to you.
Wow.
It says,
But isn't gold an element that really isn't from Earth?
Yes, it is. It's made from
I think it's from Earth. I don't know anything about that, but I know that God said the gold is mine and silver is mine. Invest in gold. That's how He says it. I believe it's in Matthew.
You know,
is that why the devil wants it so much?
You know, I could have sworn though I read something somewhere about maybe Matt will know what I'm talking about here because maybe he read the same thing. Matt, do you know what I'm referring to?
What are you talking about? The
something about gold not really being from Earth.
Well, I know they've talked a lot about there are huge amounts of gold, silver, and platinum that are in the asteroid belt.
Oh.
That gold is actually I didn't hear the story that it wasn't from Earth,
well,
but it's
part
of the planetary formation.
Sorry, we had a technical problem there. Sorry.
Meteors are worth a ton of money, and I don't think it's just for their iron or because they look different than another one. I think that they look for things in there.
Well,
tomorrow is the biggest meteor storm in recorded history, and we're supposed to, in the United States, it'll happen in the daytime, but in the Middle East, they're going to see as many as 1,000 an hour.
Well, one of the things that I did hear about the origins of gold was that one of the places where certain elements can be irradiated in such a way that it would form gold is in the sun, and we do know that the sun expels a great amount of debris into the air or into the solar system, and it does get caught up. I believe that's where they kind of say that most of it should have come from in the first place.
You're right, and that's part of it. But and I apologize, I should have had the research ready, but I didn't have the article ready, and I should have.
Well, what you said sounds very logical to me. All I'm saying is I don't know where it comes from. I know it comes from the ground. I've found some before, but other than that, if I don't know something, I just tell you I just don't know. I don't know where it comes from.
Now that the reptilians want the gold?
No, their whole thing is power
and souls.
And they know that their time is coming to unleash their hell on Earth, and they're excited about it. And I haven't seen a reptilian in a long while now, and I'm scheduled to go to S4 in about 8 weeks from now. I'm supposed to be there for 7 days. I'm filling in as commander for.
Do they smell? Do
Yeah, they have a very terrible smell to them. It's a nauseating
Oh my gosh.
sulfur smell.
That's what Sonny's
So
clothes
kind of
smell
like Sonny.
No, stop it. Wait a minute. No, but what about space? Did we go to the moon? Is there bases in the dark side of
Yes.
the moon?
I've got pictures of a swastika building on the moon.
Whoa.
And what
On
we
the
did-
moon?
Yeah, on the moon. 6 months ago, or 7 months ago, I'm sorry, we shot a 3-megaton bomb into the bottom part of the moon. Reason being is because the building they use is shaped like a swastika is their laboratory, and it wasn't getting enough light on the solar panels, and they needed it to wobble a little bit further, and it did. But when they hit it, the moon's hollow, we found out, and made of iron. When they hit it, it vibrated and rang like a bell for almost 3 months.
Unbelievable. Now, do you think there's like a galactic alien? You know, I heard Sherry talking about there's the galactic aliens everywhere, and they're all the demons, but they're different fractions, and they fight each other. So is that kind of like what the Greys are, and the Reptilians, and, you know, the Zetas?
The Greys, the Reptilians, and everything is a rank. I listened to a Satanist the other day on YouTube. Somebody from the extreme side of us sent it. Anyway, I watched it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the guy said he in his ancient writings it was Ha Satan, and it's not a name; it's a position.
Right.
So
yeah, the adversary.
Greys are the lowest form, and then you got the Tals that run the Greys, and then you got the humanoid hybrids that are pretty much high level, and then you got the Reptilians who control it all. To be a reptilian, and any of them can shapeshift into any form they want. But they're forbidden to shapeshift into reptilian unless they burn their.
But let's just make this very clear for our listeners that invest a lot of money in this Oregon. Again, Oregon will not protect them against this, correct?
No. Yeah, well, yeah. And I'm not trying to make enemies with Sherry. It's just that I always said it was the word of Christ. It worked for me, and I was pretty fluid. And it worked, and the director of MUFON came out and said the same thing. Wow. If you don't believe me, I'll send you that clip. I got a lot of links I'll send you, Jim.
Yeah,
and
please.
Some of it I'll put on there just to show the
Sure.
doctor and the other two guys there, just for you guys only.
Right, and then what we'll do then is we'll definitely love to have you back on the show, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. We'll introduce these, articles that you'll be sending us and information to our listening cast here, so they can.
Yeah, and I can walk them through it. And
so,
some of the files are big. Some of them are almost 2 hours long, but you really need to watch these.
Gotcha.
Files.
You know what I wanted to ask you, since you are a part of the Extreme Society Facebook group. I know that we talked a little bit about it earlier, but as you can tell, it's pretty chaotic in there. What is your thought on some of the characters and people that you get to talk to on the Facebook group?
Well, there's a lot of ungodly people out there.
Yep, exactly.
That's for sure.
You're one of
I've
them.
So much ungodliness in my life.
Yep.
And that's their choice. But, the hospital was made for the sick. And we're the doctors.
Hallelujah.
We got to fix it,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
what I'm telling is in spiritual divine revelation, I'm just telling you what I saw.
Right.
And what I heard from credible sources. So we could get into the divine revelation if they want to. And I've never been afraid of Satanists and things like that. And they may beat me up and make me look silly and this and that, but one thing Satan doesn't like to be reminded of, and that's where he's going. And I hate to tell you, but we're going to lose the battle, but we win the war.
Hallelujah. Yeah, and you've seen the underground D.U.M.s, and you've seen the genetic modifying and the Satanists.
Yep, manipulation of genetic codes. My thing with me is what I tell people, like with Daniel, I been there and done that. I lived in the evil. I didn't practice it or read about it and think about it. I lived evil.
Wow.
I wasn't a Christian then. I lived in the evil realm.
Right. So you were a part of this.
Yeah. So you can tell these people, hey, I was right there where you were. Come on.
Yeah, and you don't hear me stuttering when I answer my questions either.
He doesn't. And listening, because I've listened to all your broadcasts.
You should take lessons from him.
On Daniel and stuff, and he's right on point. He never sways from what he's saying, and that's what makes it legit.
He tries to trip me up with the same questions. He told me that. And he gets the same answers. He called me one day in the middle of the day, and he goes, Colonel, he goes, I got a problem. I go, what's the matter? He goes, I heard something going down my gravel drive, and there's nothing there. Is it possible that something can be cloaked? And if I were to go down through there, I'd run into it. And I said, absolutely. So,
well, there's cloakers out there.
Yeah, I think Daniel's going to have me back on again, too. And I'd like to come back on this show. I'll come back on there 50 times with you guys if you want. It doesn't matter to me. I can go on. I did one show that was 6 hours long.
Awesome.
I have seen so much that it would just take me probably 70, 80 straight hours to tell you what
you should make videos. You should make DVDs and have this information out. Like Fritz Bringsmeyer and stuff like that. He had some great information.
I'd like to, but I don't even have connections until just recently of somebody who can build me a website. I'm not real computer savvy.
Right.
I'm shooting from the hip. I don't have no notes in front of me. I'm out in my front porch right now. I don't have no notes in front of me or Bible in front of me or nothing. I'm telling you these answers straight from the hip because they're so clear to me I can't forget them, and I tell them in detail because they're so traumatic you can't forget it. And so if I had somebody that would be willing to help me build a website or something, and see, my primary business is I build underground disaster shelters made out of steel. They're the best in the world. They're FEMA compliant. And I make them affordable for everybody. They're like $6,900. They're made out of solid steel welded inside and out, and they go 8 feet deep under the ground.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, Lieutenant, we thank you for joining us here tonight on EXS Radio, and again, it was our pleasure having you on, and thanks for hanging in there on the Facebook group. I know it's a rough territory to hang in there, but you stuck around and you stick to your word, and that's great. And
he's got
Sean Malone's a good guy.
Yeah, Sean is a good guy.
Huh?
Yeah, Sean is a good guy.
Yeah, he's a pretty good guy. There's a lot of good people in there, but there's some that just, I seen one yesterday was said God was an a-hole.
My gosh.
And things like that. But those are the crowds that we want to touch.
Right.
We don't want to
Sonny
touch
doesn't think so.
everybody that's born again, But there's going to be a time when we're going to have to talk to the people who are born again who are not up on the technology that's going to happen. They're just good old-fashioned, snake handling Christians. They have a lot of faith. But we're all called.
Yes, we are. Hallelujah.
And I believe that we're called. There's some of us that are in the upper elite, and I don't mean better than anybody. I mean in God's army, a higher rank, that are here to lead people out of this country before its destruction. Because I don't believe there'll be a rapture before the tribulation. Because God does not have to protect. If God doesn't have to evacuate me, He can protect me just fine from my enemies.
Now, so you're saying to leave America?
Yes.
Where?
Petra, Jordan.
Jordan? Like in
Petra? You mean the giant temple carved in the side of the mountain, and one that was in Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade?
Yeah.
Really? There's nothing
and Transformers.
Yeah. And that's the place to go, and everything will be erased from our minds. But remnant means a small amount of people. And I'll get into next show. I'll get into the meaning of Hebrew words.
Okay.
That I'll tell you that change the whole outlook of what you just read. And always remember when you read something that God says, He speaks twice. So
He
it has
does.
two meanings to it.
Right. Now, one more thing, because I know on the Facebook page, and I know there's a lot of people out there, what do you think of Ron Paul? Again, do you think that the presidents are picked? You don't even pick them. What do you think about that?
I'll tell you what I think about that. And I said on Daniel Ott's show. In 1979, I told my mother who all the presidents were going to be up to George Bush Jr., and they all happened.
Wow.
And I told her we wouldn't have a president after that, and we don't. He's not a legitimate citizen. He's not a president. But I told him by name and year, and my mom hit the floor when Clinton won because I told her about him too. But it was scripted, and your vote does not count. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But it's who they want in.
Yep.
Who's in the elite game. The 13 bloodline families, you know, the Bilderbergs, the Kennedys, all that. You have to be in that bloodline to make it, or you ain't going to make it.
Oh. Well, Greg, thanks again for joining us here tonight. We appreciate you being on and appreciate you taking part in everything that you do and in the websites. And again, yeah, we'll definitely be in touch and definitely have you back on for sure.
Yeah, I hope I answered all your questions good and the show came out okay for you.
Everything's great. All right, Greg. Well, thanks again for joining us. Have a good night. Be safe and keep on doing what you do.
Amen, brother. God bless.
God bless to Yeshua.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you, sir.